For years, we've been promised that AI would automate work, replacing repetitive tasks and freeing humans from busy work. Every few months, a new tool appears with new headlines and new demos, and yet when you look in the real world, something doesn't add up. Despite all the hype, automation tools haven't reached 1% of market penetration. Everyone knows them, almost no one uses them. The demand is massive, the tools exist, and headlines won't stop. And yet, when you actually look inside these companies, almost nothing has changed. One MIT-backed report found that 95% of AI automation pilots never make it past the test phase. Right now, Gartner expects over 40% of AI projects to be canceled by 2027. So what's going on? Why did the automation wave never happen? To understand why, we first need to understand the problem automation is trying to solve. Take a typical company, about 1,000 employees. That company is divided into dozens of small teams. One of those teams is Josh. Josh works in procurement. Every morning, he spends 3 to 4 hours downloading PDF offers from his email, extracting the information, and manually entering it into his company's internal system. This work is slow, it's expensive, and it's mentally exhausting. But above all, it's not rare. Josh knows that this part of his job should be automated. So he does what employees are supposed to do. He asks his manager, who asks the internal IT department. What comes back is familiar to anyone who's worked in a large organization. A project plan, a budget estimate, a requirements document, multiple approval steps, and a timeline that starts sometime next year, if the project is approved at all. All for a workflow that affects a team of 10 people, automation simply isn't worth the effort. Why enterprise automation fails in practice? This is not an exception. It's how most companies work. IT departments are chronically understaffed. Industry guidance often puts large organizations in a range of 1 IT staff per 100 to 200 employees. And even when companies want to modernize, they're carrying an anchor. McKinsey notes that about 70% of the software powering Fortune 500 companies was developed 20+ years ago. So when internal IT runs out, companies turn to external integrators. These projects start expensive and get worse. Timelines stretch from months to years, budgets inflate, and when the solution finally ships, it's often not what the team asked for. So they go back. Feedback loops, bug fixes, more months. Eventually something gets delivered. It's messy, it's fragile, and nobody's happy with it. This experience is so exhausting that most teams learn to avoid it entirely. And because of this, they stop asking for automation. Custom automation is possible, but for most companies, it's not worth the pain. A market that looks crowded, but isn't. So what about off-the-shelf tools? At first glance, the market looks crowded. Over the last few years, 3 categories of tools have emerged: workflow automation tools, RPA platforms, and AI browsers. Billions of dollars have been poured into this space. Their products exist, the marketing is everywhere, and yet, adoption stays flat. So what's wrong with them? Workflow automation tools. Tools like N8N, Zapier, and Make promise simple drag and drop solutions. On paper, they look perfect, and for some things, they really do work. Email to Google Sheets, Google Calendar to HubSpot, alerts to Slack, you get the picture. These tools run on APIs, standardized interfaces that let software talk to software. When an app easily gives its API, automation could be fast, cheap, and reliable. But here's the problem. Even when APIs exist, you need access. That means API keys, credentials, and permissions. Most employees don't even know what an API key is, let alone where to get one. And even if they do, access is often locked behind IT, security reviews, or approval chains and internal certifications. Some systems, like SAP, technically have APIs, but only certified third-party vendors can use them. Not you, not your team. And that's just the software that has APIs at all. Here's what the enterprise software stack actually looks like. About 10% is shared across most companies. Office tools, email, Slack, and maybe Salesforce. This part is well connected. APIs exist, and if you have the right credentials and some technical know-how, integrations usually work. But 90% of actual work time is spent somewhere else, in niche industry software, and custom extensions built on top of SAP or Dynamics, and in internal tools that were built in-house 10 years ago. This is the long tail of business software. And in this long tail, there's no APIs, no connections, and no integrations. Workflow automation doesn't fail because it's badly designed. It fails because it works in the 10% and ignores the 90% where real work happens. RPA tools like UiPath take a different approach. Instead of relying on APIs, they directly interact with the user interface. They do this through clicks, keystrokes, and mouse movements. And for certain processes, this actually works. Standardized invoice processing, data entry, and moving numbers from one system to another. The way RPA works is very simple. You record a script, a series of actions, and the bot replays it. Same clicks, same fields, same order every time. But here's what demos don't show you. Just getting started is expensive. UiPath isn't something most teams casually pick up on a Friday afternoon. If you search for a beginner guide, you'll often find a 2-hour tutorial that starts somewhere in the terminal. Typing strange commands, manually formatting variables, and debugging JSON strings you've never even seen before. And that's before you deal with enterprise requirements like licensing, service accounts, access reviews, servers to run the bots, monitoring, and audit logs. How companies deal with this is by hiring specialists, often very expensive and focused in UiPath consulting. And because the automation breaks, the specialist has to be rehired to fix it. Which brings us to the second problem. Interfaces are not static. A button moves, a label changes, a pop-up appears, or a layout shifts, and when that happens, the script breaks. Not gracefully and with an error message, it just stops. Or worse, it keeps going and enters data in the wrong place. So someone has to fix it, test it, and redeploy it once more. UiPath itself cites an EY study. 30 to 50% of initial RPA projects fail to meet their intended objectives. And the ones that don't fail, they require constant maintenance. Companies don't talk about this part, but behind every successful RPA deployment is often a small team whose entire job is to keep the bots running. That's not automation. That's outsourced labor with better marketing. In 2025, a new category emerged, the Agentic Browser. Perplexity launched Comet, OpenAI launched Atlas. The idea is compelling. A browser that doesn't just display the web, but navigates for you. It reads the page, understands your intent, and performs the action. Whether it's booking a trip, comparing prices, or filling out a form, it automates the monotonous parts of the internet. And for personal productivity, this makes sense, but when you look at what the tools are actually used for, a problem emerges. Most demos focus on two scenarios: making travel plans and online shopping. These are real tasks, and they're tasks many people prefer to do themselves. Choosing a hotel, comparing prices, browsing products. For most users, that's not painful, it's part of the experience. The tasks that are painful, filing taxes, navigating government portals, managing complex paperwork, tend to fall outside of what current agentic browsers can reliably handle. So there's a mismatch between what gets demoed and what users actually need automated. In our own testing, even straightforward tasks made mixed results. Agents misclicked, stalled on pop-ups, and stopped mid-workflow. But this isn't necessarily a criticism of the technology itself. It's new and it'll improve. This is more of a question of the architecture itself. Agentic browsers are designed around one user, one session, and one machine running it. This is shown through the agent running inside your own browser. Unfortunately, when this happens, it inherits your laptop's constraints. Close the tab and your agent stops. Laptop sleeps, gone. Lose your connection and the whole session breaks. For a personal assistant, this is acceptable, but for business use, it's not. The model creates structural problems. Agents can't run for extended periods in the background. They can't access desktop applications or legacy systems. They operate with your login, which raises security and compliance questions, and there's no audit trail to review what the agent did. And above all, because the user is bound to one session, it can only run one automation at a time. That's fine for a sidekick, but if you need automation at scale, running dozens or hundreds of parallel processes, running continuously across systems, the architecture just wasn't designed for that. Agentic browsers solve a real problem, but it's one that's different from enterprise automation. So where does this leave us? 3 categories of tools with 3 different approaches that all have the same problem: limited adoption. Workflow automation only exists where APIs exist, which is a tiny fraction of enterprise software. And even then, it requires technical know-how that most employees just don't have. RPA can work anywhere, but it's expensive to deploy and often requires maintenance that's not worth the cost savings. And agentic browsers are easy to use, but they're designed for individuals, not companies. They're a sidekick, but they're not going to be what builds your workforce. Each tool has a different weakness, but they all run into the same wall: enterprise software that businesses actually use. Real work doesn't happen in one tool or one browser tab. It happens across dozens of applications, many of them decades old, disconnected, and never meant to be automated in the first place. These 20-year-old systems were meant to be optimized by humans, and humans just don't need a perfect interface to do their work. We as humans are formed by evolution to be adaptive to these unintuitive environments, but these automation tools are not. At Warmwind, we're not building an automation tool. We're rethinking what AI can be. Today, AI lives in a chat window. It can suggest, it can answer, it can summarize, but it can't do. It can't open a software, it can't navigate a system, and it can't complete a workflow while you sleep. We're changing that. We give AI eyes so it can see what's on the screen. We give it hands so it can navigate the software. And we give it a place to work. Warmwind OS. Not a browser, not a plugin, a real operating system running in the cloud. No complexity, no long integration process, and no fear of breaking. You tell it what needs to be done, and it knows how to do it for you. There's a principle we kept coming back to during development. AI should work like a kitchen appliance. Simple, robust, and extremely capable. You don't need a manual to use a blender, and you don't need a certification to use a coffee machine. These tools are designed so well that anyone can use them without training, fear, and without asking for permission. That is exactly how AI should work. When something this simple appears, the gatekeepers disappear and the idea police go away. And suddenly the person who has the idea is also the one who executes it. Here's what we keep seeing. There's 1 billion people in the global workforce right now. Most of them have ideas of things they know they should be automating. They're not resisting automation. They're being held back from it by complexity, gatekeepers, and tools they were never taught how to use. All that pressure, all that desire is just waiting to be released. We don't need to convince people that automation matters. They've known this and they've known it for years. What they need is a way to act on it. And that's what Warmwind is. Not a tool that requires permission, but one that removes the need for it. With Warmwind, someone like Josh doesn't file a ticket and wait. He builds an automation for it in minutes. And that little difference changes everything. At this point, a natural question comes up. If AI is going to do all the work, why does vision even matter? Not because humans need to click buttons or that screens are fashionable. It's because visual and spatial awareness are fundamental in how biological and artificial intelligence operates. Modern AI research increasingly shows that visual representations carry information that is not easily captured by text and APIs alone. Vision encodes relationships between elements, topology, and spatial context. All of these essential components for a world model that can support prediction, reasoning, and action. Even in cutting-edge AI research, integrating vision into AI is one of the highest forms of integration, enabling systems to learn from these interactions and communicate with visual interfaces. What this means is that vision isn't just cosmetic. These models go beyond simple pattern recognition. They're a step towards functional intelligence, helping the systems understand and interact with different environments. There's another reason vision remains relevant. Even as autonomy increases, legibility still matters. A model that acts needs a way to represent what it did and why. Without alternative representations, often visual or spatial, decisions become opaque, making debugging, validation, and alignment all the more difficult. Explainability research frequently uses visual representations because it makes complex ideas much simpler for us to understand. So vision isn't just a fallback for when APIs don't exist. It's a representation resume that captures ideas in a way that text can't do very easily. It supports richer, more general world models, and it provides a way for us to more easily interpret what the models do in its environment. That's why our approach doesn't start with APIs and hope to integrate visuals later. We start with vision because it's universal, informationally rich, and closer to how complex systems actually work. When native integrations make sense, those are easily layered in. But every action, whether API or visual, is all visually represented so that nothing is in the dark. Not because humans must work, but because intelligence, whether artificial or hybrid, needs to see the world it acts in. APIs are an optimization. Vision is a substrate. The automation wave didn't fail, it was gated. It was gated by complexity, gated by permission, and gated by the assumption that someone else would always build it for you. But the demand was always there, the ideas were always there, and the will was certainly always there. At Warmwind, we're not creating that demand. We're enabling people to build their own solutions for their own problems.